Welcome to this new video. Today we are going to talk about cluster role in our Kubernetes permissions. So what is a cluster role? If you are familiar with a role and role binding, before I explain cluster role, let me go back a little bit. We have first a role. A role is just a set of rules, and then we have a role binding, and the role binding is just like applying a role to either an individual or a service account, for example. And the role binding are only applicable on the namespace. So the role and the role binding are only applicable on the namespace. So the cluster role is just like the role. If you know the role, the cluster role is just like the role. But the only difference between the cluster role and the role is that the role is applicable only on the specific namespace, but the cluster role is applicable on all namespaces. And the cluster role is just a set of rules. It's a set of rules that you define, and you can apply those rules to all the namespace. So I see the cluster role and the role just like in the United States, you have state have their governor. So the state you have state have their law. The law is like the law of Texas, for example, is like the role, because that law is only applicable on Texas. But you have the law of the US. That law is applicable in all the states. So every single state have its own law, but there's a United States law that is applicable, for example, to all the states. So cluster role is just a set of rules that you apply to a specific resource, right? Like here, the resource here is a pod, and you are giving the get, the watch, and the list, and you're applying another one to the node resource. So that this role will be applicable to all namespaces. This role will be applicable to all namespaces. So if you know role, cluster role is just the same thing as role, but the only difference that it actually is applicable on all namespaces. Like we say here in Kubernetes, a cluster role is a non-namespace resources that grant access to cluster-wide. See, cluster-wide resources like node, persistent volume, and namespaces, as well as namespace resources like pod across all namespaces, right? All namespaces. Cluster role are useful when you want to grant permission that are applicable cluster-wide. One more time, cluster-wide are not limited to a single namespace. I hope you guys like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. See you guys on the next video. Thank you.